Dear students, welcome you all to the lecture on identity and multiculturalism. The objectives of this lecture are to understand the meaning of identity politics and multiculturalism, to know the historical context of the multiculturalism, to study the theoretical perspectives on multiculturalism, and to understand the identity politics and the interplay with multiculturalism, and to explore the challenges and critiques of identity politics and multiculturalism. Understanding the complex interactions between diversity and identity politics has become a pressing necessity at a time marked by the expanding interconnection of countries and the constant exchange of ideas. Multiculturalism and identity politics are frequently discussed together, although they are not the same thing. Multiculturalism is a political ideology that argues for the inclusion of various cultural groups in society, whereas identity politics is a political movement focused on experiences and interests of a certain identity group. As the world has gotten more interconnected, multiculturalism has emerged as a growing trend in multiple nations in recent decades. The ethnic diversity of the United States, for example, has become more diversified with people from all over the world calling it home. Because of this diversity, there is an ongoing discussion regarding how to best accept different cultures and different identities. Identity politics is a newer phenomenon that has been condemned for being divisive and for fostering essentialist conceptions of identity. Identity politics supporters, on the other hand, claim that it is a crucial weapon for fighting for the rights of marginalized people. Both multiculturalism and identity politics have advantages and disadvantages. Multiculturalism can contribute to the development of a more inclusive society, but it can also lead to assimilation and the loss of cultural diversity. Identity politics can assist underprivileged groups gain power, but it can also lead to conflict and division. To comprehend multiculturalism and identity politics, consider them as two distinct methods of coping with variety in society. Multiculturalism is a broader perspective, whereas identity politics is more targeted. Both approaches have advantages and disadvantages, and the optimal approach to utilize will be determined by the unique circumstances. An in-depth examination of these ideas in the context of our globalized society is the goal of this lecture. We will explore the theoretical underpinnings and delve into practical instances to understand the intricacies, difficulties and ramifications of multiculturalism and identity politics. Multiculturalism and its historical context. As a concept, multiculturalism emerged in response to historical developments and societal changes. Its beginnings can be seen in the middle of the 20th century, when post-colonial countries were attempting to negotiate the difficulties presented by various communities. For instance, Canada recognized the cultural diversity inside its boundaries in 1971 and made multiculturalism an official policy. Similar to this, Australia accepted multiculturalism in 1970s recognizing the diversity of its population. Theoretical perspectives on multiculturalism. Multiculturalism is supported by many theoretical frameworks that shed light on its guiding principles and goals. Liberal pluralism supports the value of various cultural manifestations while highlighting the significance of cultural rights. To guarantee the freedom to exercise and retain cultural identities, it makes the case for the preservation of both individual and collective rights. On the other side, cosmopolitanism promotes global citizenship and the recognition of cultural variety as an essential element of a cosmopolitan society. It emphasizes respect and understanding amongst people of different cultures and supports the idea that people can identify with numerous cultures. Multiculturalism has not, however, been without its detractors. Some contend that multicultural policy can support stereotypes and sustain cultural essentialism. To create a more cohesive and unified society, assimilationist views contend that multicultural policies should be subordinated in favor of a shared national identity. Benefits and challenges of multiculturalism. Multiculturalism has several possible benefits for societies. Promoting social inclusion and cohesion, multiculturalism seeks to create a more inclusive society in which people from all cultural backgrounds can coexist harmoniously. Cultural diversity as a source of creativity and innovation. Multiculturalism acknowledges the importance of varied cultural viewpoints in encouraging creativity in a variety of fields, including the arts, sciences, and commerce. However, there are several disadvantages to multiculturalism. Cultural differences cause conflicts and tensions. Disagreements, miscommunications, and challenges managing various cultural norms and values within a society can all come from a cultural variety. In multicultural communities, striking a balance between respect for unique cultural identities and the fostering of a feeling of common citizenship and national unity is critical. Awareness of the complexities of multiculturalism necessitates an awareness of its theoretical roots, historical context, benefits, and drawbacks. By exploring these characteristics, we can gain a greater understanding of the importance of variety in our increasingly diverse communities. Multicultural policies and approaches. Policies on multiculturalism vary by country and environment, reflecting each country's unique social, political, and historical conditions. Some countries pursue an assimilationist strategy, fostering the merger of minority cultures into the dominant culture. Others advocate a more pluralistic approach, recognizing and respecting the cultural differences of various communities. For example, Canada's multiculturalism strategy is sometimes referred to as the mosaic model. It respects and protects the rights of individuals and communities to maintain and express their cultural identities, while simultaneously fostering a sense of national togetherness. The Canadian approach promotes diversity through inclusive policies such as funding for cultural organizations and celebrations of multicultural heritage. France, on the other hand, has a more assimilationist stance, emphasizing a shared national identity while downplaying cultural diversity. By integrating minority cultures into mainstream French society, the French method encourages immigrants to accept the French language and traditions. Debates and critiques of multiculturalism. Multiple discussions and criticisms have been made of multiculturalism. Some contend that multicultural policies can exacerbate divisions along ethnic or cultural lines, contributing to cultural fragmentation and impeding social cohesiveness. Multiculturalism may unintentionally maintain cultural segregation, according to critics, and prevent the formation of a strong sense of national identity. Others expressed worries about the maintenance of a sense of national identity as well as the potential degradation of fundamental cultural values and customs. They contend that giving multiculturalism priority could damage society's social fabric and diminish a feeling of shared identity. Let's discuss two prominent thinkers and their views on multiculturalism and identity politics. Will Gimlicher, a well-known political philosopher and scholar, has made important contributions to the understanding and development of multiculturalism and identity politics. He contends that multiculturalism is necessary for promoting social justice and preserving the dignity of individuals in varied societies. He highlights the significance of cultural recognition and collective rights within liberal democracies, as well as the imperative of securing equal rights and opportunities for all citizens. He advocates polyethnic rights as a framework for tolerating diversity, emphasizing the importance of striking the balance between individual and collective rights. He also recognizes the difficulties of identity politics, which can lead to societal fragmentation if it elevates group identities over shared values and similar aims. Gimlicher defines two forms of minority rights: national minority rights and polyethnic minority rights. National minority rights defend and preserve the different cultures and languages of historically entrenched national communities, whereas polyethnic rights are concerned with the rights of immigrant groups and individuals within multicultural countries. Maintaining an equitable and inclusive society requires balancing group specific rights with individual rights. In terms of identity politics, Gimlicher believes that people have the right to define and express their own identities, which are influenced by social, cultural and political elements. However, he warns against essentialism and reductionism, arguing for a more nuanced understanding of people's diverse identities and the intersections of many forms of oppression. He promotes an intersectional approach that takes into account the multiple characters of identities. Bhikkhu Parekh, an eminent political theorist and philosopher, has shed light on multiculturalism and identity politics. He advocates for a multicultural approach that recognizes and respects cultural variety, pushing beyond a monolithic understanding of culture and recognizing the intricacies and fluidity of identities in modern society. According to Parekh's concept of dialogical universalism, multicultural communities should encourage communication and understanding among different cultural groups, acknowledging similar values and principles while respecting and valuing varied cultural practices and perspectives. Parekh recognizes the importance of identity politics in providing a voice to oppressed communities and opposing systematic inequities. He warns against divisive and exclusionary identity politics that exacerbates divisions among diverse communities. He emphasizes the importance of an inclusive and democratic approach to identity politics, intending to promote social justice, inclusivity, and common interests rather than combative politics that perpetuate divisions. Parekh's work adds to the conversation by providing a nuanced view of multiculturalism, advocating for inclusive forms of identity politics and pushing for the growth of shared values and principles in heterogeneous communities. Societies can aim to develop inclusive and cohesive communities that appreciate variety while promoting a feeling of collective identity and belonging by accepting Parekh's thoughts. The effectiveness of multicultural policies in addressing issues connected to power relations and inequality is also disputed by detractors. They contend that multiculturalism might unintentionally maintain social inequalities and fail to address the fundamental obstacles that underprivileged groups experience. By understanding the arguments and criticisms of multiculturalism, we may engage in critical conversation and develop policies to achieve inclusivity, social cohesion, and equitable representation of diverse groups. By studying the historical context, theoretical underpinnings, policies, and debates that surround multiculturalism, we may negotiate its complexities and build a deeper knowledge of its benefits and drawbacks. Further, we will look at how multiculturalism and identity politics interact, shedding insight into how identity politics shape and are shaped by multicultural cultures. Identity politics, the interplay with multiculturalism. Identity politics refers to political movements and ideologies that focus on the issues and experiences of certain identity groups such as race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religion, or disability. It recognizes that in addition to personal attributes, social, cultural, and political forces form a person's identity. Identity politics aims to speak out against systematic injustices, challenge established hierarchies, and give disadvantaged communities a voice. The concept of intersectionality is an important topic in identity politics because it recognizes that people have several overlapping identities that interact to shape their experiences and social settings. It emphasizes the connections between oppressive institutions and proposes a wide strategy that considers the different overlapping dimensions of identity. Social movements centered on identity politics have evolved to resist many forms of injustice and inequality. Native American and LGBTQ plus rights movements, feminist and civil rights movements, and women's rights movements are all examples. These movements seek to reinterpret popular perceptions, advocate for equal rights, and challenge oppressive structures. Identity politics and multiculturalism. Identity politics and multiculturalism are inextricably linked since they both deal with the issues of diversity, inclusion, and power dynamics in society. Identity politics, which emphasizes the importance of recognizing and representing disadvantaged communities, have had an impact on multicultural policy. Multiculturalism as a policy framework typically addresses identity-based concerns by recognizing and allowing for the diversity of cultural identities existent in society. It acknowledges the importance of cultural representation, rights, and the preservation of distinct identities. However, conflicts between multiculturalism and identity politics may arise. Detractors argue that identity politics can foster social fragmentation by emphasizing group identities and disparities. They argue that a focus on individual identities risks concealing the common principles and group identities that are essential for society's stability. Challenges and critiques of identity politics. Identity politics has its own set of challenges and criticisms. Essentialism and reductionism become problematic when identity politics confine people to a single component of their identity and simplify complex identities. This may limit our ability to comprehend other people's experiences and cause us to overlook how different identities interact. Besides, by forging strong lines between distinct identity groups, identity politics has the potential to polarize society and encourage exclusion. Conflicts between various oppressed groups may develop from time to time, highlighting the difficulties and tensions that come with managing several identities in multicultural communities. However, intersectionality provides a framework for addressing these issues. It promotes recognizing and comprehending the numerous intersections of identities as well as encouraging solidarity among various oppressed groups and rejecting single issue politics. Identity politics may create inclusivity and emphasize the interconnectedness of diverse types of oppression by embracing intersectionality. Understanding the dynamics of identity politics and multiculturalism allows us to get insight into the intricacies and potential conflicts that might develop when negotiating multiple identities in society. Now, let us look at real world case studies to better understand the practical ramifications of multiculturalism and identity politics. Starting with Canada. Many times, Canada is used as an illustration of a nation that has made multiculturalism an official policy. The mosaic concept, which is used in Canada, embraces and celebrates the cultural diversity that exists there. Multiculturalism in Canada dates back to the 1970s, when the government realized it needed to address issues of cultural rights and community integration for immigrants. The multiculturalism policy of 1971 reaffirmed Canada's commitment to preserving and enhancing cultural variety while promoting equality and social harmony. The Canadian approach, however, is not without its difficulties and ongoing discussions. Some contend that multicultural policies could unintentionally promote cultural segregation and obstruct the formation of a strong sense of national identity. Additionally, critics argue whether multiculturalism effectively addresses the structural injustices that marginalized groups must contend with, underscoring the necessity of ongoing efforts to overcome socio-economic inequality. The second one, European unity. Unity in diversity. Due to the diversity of its member states and the difficulties associated with cross-border integration, the European Union offers a special setting for studying multiculturalism. The European Union acknowledges the value of unity in diversity, even though it does not take a uniform stance on multiculturalism. Member states of European Union take various stances on integration and multiculturalism. Others place a higher priority on multicultural policies that respect many cultural manifestations, while others emphasize assimilation and the adoption of national values. Multiculturalism in the European environment faces both potential and difficulties. On the other hand, the European Union encourages cross-cultural communication, mobility and trade, which makes it easier for people of different cultural backgrounds to live together. However, as member states struggle with challenges relating to migration, national identity and the integration of diverse groups, tensions may develop. The European Union's commitment to multiculturalism is reflected in the Charter of Fundamental Rights, which guarantees both individual and the group rights, including cultural rights. However, there are ongoing debates and policy impasses inside the European Union over issues such as religious freedom, cultural standards, and how to accommodate diversity within a broader European identity. The next one, India. Diversity as the nation's strength. India is a good case study for multiculturalism due to its rich history, religious diversity, and regional distinctions. India's experience can be used as a model for how diversity should be managed in a pluralistic and complex society. The secularism enshrined in India's constitution, as well as the country's historical context, serve as the foundation for its multiculturalism. India's national identity is founded on pluralism and diversity, recognizing the coexistence of diverse religions, languages, and cultural traditions. However, multiculturalism in India is not without challenges. There are ongoing conflicts in the country, as a result of linguistic, caste-based and religious difficulties. Because a complex social fabric makes managing diversity challenging, ongoing efforts to foster social peace, inclusivity and equitable opportunity for all citizens are essential. It is also worth noting how identity politics has impacted India. A variety of political and social movements have emerged in the country focused on caste, language and regional identity issues. These movements attempted to fight for equal rights, correct past wrongs and dismantle entrenched societal hierarchies. Understanding these real-world case studies provides us with significant insights into the complexities and intricacies of multiculturalism in practice. Each case study focuses on the specific challenges, accomplishments and contemporary debates around multiculturalism and identity politics in specific societal contexts, implications and future directions. The promotion of social cohesiveness is an important component of preserving harmony and peaceful coexistence in a diverse community. The emphasis should be on establishing mutual respect, communication and understanding among diverse cultures. Education is critical for building intercultural understanding and respect, emphasizing shared values and eliminating prejudices and misconceptions. Initiatives to enhance intercultural communication can provide opportunities for people from varied backgrounds to communicate meaningfully, fostering empathy and breaking down cultural boundaries. Furthermore, policies that encourage intercultural activities and cooperation, promote community integration and provide equal opportunity for all can help to strengthen social cohesiveness in heterogeneous cultures. Moving to ethical considerations, it might be difficult to establish a balance between cultural rights and fundamental human rights in multicultural contexts. Cultural rights are important for preserving cultural identities and rituals, but they should not be used to justify disregarding essential human rights values such as gender equality or the right to free expression. It takes to address these ethical dilemmas in a way that respects cultural diversity while also adhering to universal human rights values. Public policies and governance structures should be developed to keep cultural rights within the confines of moral values, while also advancing inclusivity and fairness for all individuals and communities. Critics of multiculturalism and identity politics. Multiculturalism has been criticized from a variety of perspectives. Cultural relativism, which contends that stress on variation and cultural rights may unwittingly lead to the acceptance of cultural behaviors that contradict universal human rights norms, is one common objection. Critics argue that diversity should not be used to preserve unwanted habits or to limit the rights of certain people, particularly those from underprivileged communities. Another criticism is levelled at the preservation of national identity. Some argue that putting too much emphasis on multiculturalism may weaken or corrode a sense of shared national identity. They argue that a strong national identity is necessary for social cohesion and a sense of belonging. Furthermore, the debate over assimilation versus integration in diversity persists. Some argue that multicultural policies should promote integration by encouraging immigrants to learn the language and values of the host society. Others advocate for a more assimilationist approach and the concept of a common national identity that transcends cultural distinctions. Critics of identity politics. Identity politics has also been criticized on various grounds. Two difficulties are the possibility of fragmentation and the establishment of echo chambers. Identity politics, critics argue, can deepen disparities by emphasizing group identities and prioritizing the issues of specific identity groups over common goals and ideals. Identity politics has been criticized alongside essentialism and reductionism. Some opponents argue that focusing just on one aspect of a person's identity oversimplifies their experiences and ignores the intersections of many identities. Divergent agendas, interests, or opinions frequently cause conflicts between distinct identity-based movements. It is an ongoing effort to address these disagreements and find common ground while understanding the unique difficulties of different communities. Intersectionality as a framework. The idea of intersectionality offers a valuable framework for dealing with the criticisms and difficulties of both multiculturalism and identity politics. Intersectionality recognizes that people have multiple intersecting identities that influence their experiences of privilege and oppression. By taking an intersectional approach and accounting for the complexities of people's lived experiences, identity politics can move beyond narratives focused on a specific problem. The notion of intersectionality promotes an inclusive view of identities by emphasizing the links between multiple oppressions and encouraging unity across diverse communities. Using an intersectional perspective, it is possible to address systematic injustices and power inequities in multicultural communities. It encourages a closer look at how different identities interact to shape people's experiences and access to resources, leading to more comprehensive and inclusive approaches to social justice. Finally, identity politics and multiculturalism concerns highlight the importance of nuanced and unbiased methodologies. Concerns like cultural relativism, national identity, and integration versus assimilation necessitate ongoing discussions and policy improvements. Identity politics critiques such as fragmentation and reductionism call for an intersectional framework that acknowledges the multifaceted character of multiple identities while encouraging unity. Understanding the objections allows us to better handle the complexities of multiculturalism and identity politics, encourage inclusive discourse, and fine-tune policies to accommodate the concerns of marginalized groups while protecting fundamental human rights. Critical analysis, intersectionality, and challenging essentialist narratives can help us advance towards more equitable and inclusive communities. Dear students, while concluding this lecture, we can say that diversity and identity politics are critical in today's global society. Navigating multiple cultures necessitates an awareness of the complexities, problems, and implications of these concepts. Through case studies, we explored how countries such as Canada, the European Union, and India approach diversity and deal with identity politics. Creating an inclusive and peaceful society necessitates the development of social cohesion, the balance of cultural rights with fundamental human rights, and the promotion of intercultural understanding by incorporating these principles into policy, education, and government. We may create a future that embraces diversity, respects individual and communal identities, and foster a sense of belonging for all members of society. It is our responsibility as citizens of this nation to engage in critical dialogue, research, and activism to advance the ongoing conversation about diversity and identity politics. We can endeavor to construct societies that uphold the concepts of justice, equality, and respect for the diversity of human identities by doing so. Dear students, with this, I would like to conclude today's topic. I am sure that it has been a valuable learning experience for you and has sparked your interest in the subject matter. I look forward to our next meeting where we can explore a new and exciting topic. Until then, bye.